Hey everybody, I'm back after a long time, and the main reason I've been gone is this. This is my race car. Um, it's taken a lot of my time, effort, and money, so I haven't had a lot of any of that to go around to anything else, including Nerf, but I am coming back, and there is a war coming up, and I've been getting a lot of messages about what should I wear, what should I bring, what kind of gun should I use, what's my loadout, how do I carry my gear, and I hope to somewhat answer that. I'm very specific. I know what I like. I know what I'm good with because I've been to a lot of wars. So I run what I run. But generally the advice that I'm about to give you works for just about everything. And the first thing we're going to start with is apparel. Obviously, this is my war shirt, but there's multiple reasons. First one being my name. Second one being it's 50-50 cotton polyester. It's easy to care and wash, but it's also moisture wicking and very cool, especially in the summer months. So I keep it. The other one is a hat. Obviously, you gotta have something witty on it there, but the use of a hat is pretty obvious. Shield the sun. Not like this. Not like this. To shield the sun, especially again if you're playing outdoors. These are all utilitarian things. You should really be, using them for what they're made to be used for. Other thing is pants. I always wear cargo shorts because I'm a dork, I guess, but my cargo shorts have pockets in them. Stuff extra ammo, extra magazines, whatever, all over the place. Very useful if you don't have cargo shorts. You'll get some goodwill, I'm sure. The other thing, you can't see it, and I'm not going to pan down, are shoes. Not flip-flops, not toe shoes, not hiking boots. Athletic running shoes. It makes a big difference, believe it or not. Next point is rigs. And this determines so much of how you can play the game. I started once upon a time with a chest rig, and a lot of people go out of their way to buy airsoft or real gun simulation vests and rigs and everything. You don't need to do that. I spent maybe $6 on this one, and basically what it is a set of suspenders that I've shortened on a single solid leather belt. And you can tell I don't use it anymore because there's nothing on it, but I just strap magazine holders across the front of it. Boom, there's my vest. Have someone else, buckle me in. This is such a cost-effective way if you're going to use something that knocks your glasses off, or use anything that goes anywhere on your chest, because those holders can get really expensive. Now, my personal favorite, and this has gotten a loving nickname by the Nerf community in the Southeast, is the belt, or in my case, the hula skirt. You can count them. There are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 12-round magazines on this. And when I wear it, it makes a lot of noise, but it doesn't get in my way. It's around the waist. I can move freely. Nothing's impeding my arms for aiming and sprinting. And for me, it works a lot better. So, lesson, basically, if you're going to tank, use a chest harness. You're not going to move much, but you've got a lot more ammo. If you're going to be running anywhere, use a belt. You can have a lot more mobility and still carry a fair amount of ammo. Or, use both. But then you're definitely a tank. And in NVZ, we had a team of specifically tanks, and we were known as Ghost Low Taco. Hi, Ghost Low Taco fans, if you're out there. I missed you guys this year. I'm sorry.
In the arms of the angel, fly.
Anyways, yeah. My next piece of advice is holders and holsters. You'll notice a lot of what I have is professionally made, either 3D printed by myself or stitched together by someone who knows what they're doing, but you don't need to go that far. Cardboard and duct tape is an amazing thing. I've built a lot of magazine carriers and a lot of pistol holsters from cardboard and duct tape, and I'm sure you can find a review on that on YouTube. Pretty simple, you just use the cardboard as the solid pieces and the duct tape as the hinges and joints to hold them together. But the first issue I'd like to address is magazine holding. It's a pretty big issue, especially if you're going to be carrying a lot of magazines and you want to be effective and not have to go around and scavenge during a game, is to be able to hold many magazines and hold them to yourself. This is a Rival magazine that I 3D print. Holds 3 triple stack, and they're all staggered so they're easy to grab, but they have a belt loop on the back, so you can strap it to a chest rig like the one that I showed you how I built, or just to your normal belt. Same thing goes for the Rival magazines. Now these are a little looser, but that's because the Rival magazines are taller, and generally if you have these held solid, your balls will start to bounce out. So you don't want that to happen. So you actually want Rival magazine holders loose. That's why these are. They also have a belt loop for you to strap them on wherever you need them. The other point is holsters for your sidearms. Now this is a hammer shot holster that I make. It fits any hammer shot that doesn't have an exterior cosmetic modification to it. And it too jiggles, but it doesn't fall out. And that's important, especially when running. You can mount this to your belt wherever. Just make sure it's attached to you and it's easy to reach under your arm, on your belt, on your back. I can't reach, but make sure that it's easy to get to. And that leads me to my final point, my Nike holster. This was made by Gorilla Tactical. If you don't know them, they're an awesome company that hand makes holsters for Nerf. I forget where they're from. They're somewhere up north. I sent my blaster off and I had this holster back within 4 days. That's amazing because my Nike is nothing like an actual Nerf blaster. They started from scratch and built this from scratch to my specifications to hold my blaster, strap it down on my left leg, hold onto my belt, and carry extra magazines. And they did that all in 4 days. I love Gorilla Tactical to death, and I'm sorry I'm preaching for them, but if you want something that's useful and lasts a long time, find Gorilla Tactical or another company out there that can do the same thing and get a proper holster and magazine carrier set made for you. Alright, second piece of advice I've got for you is mark your stuff. Figure out a good universal marking system for your own goods and respect those that aren't yours. Case in point, that is a Drac magazine. I don't know how it ended up in my gear, but guess where it's going this Saturday when I go back to Georgia? Back to Drac. It works both ways. If you expect somebody to respect your marks, make sure that you respect theirs. And a lot of people are putting marks on blasters that I'm seeing that are getting rubbed off or aren't visible, and really on a blaster it's for you to know that it's yours. And the place that I put it is right near the trigger guard in a place where it won't be rubbed off. Wow, that was a terrible camera angle. In a place that it won't be rubbed off, which for me is underneath here. Now, if you're into marking darts, figure out a place to mark them and mark them that way every single time. If my darts have an elite head, they'll have a single line across the front of it. That includes megas. If my darts don't, like a suction cup dart or a whistler dart, I'll put a line across the back end, a single line. I know it's mine, everybody else knows it's mine, but honestly I've gotten to the point where I just don't care enough anymore. Alright, next point, and I'm going to get really up close to the camera for this one, is don't use messed up ammo. Don't do it. Messed up ammo will mess you up. So I see a lot of people running around with ammo that's been, chewed, bitten off, squished flat, missing pieces, or is just falling apart in general. I don't know if you can see that one, but it's pretty rough. Nerf is such a temperamental thing. We all know that darts don't really fly true, but even more so when your dart looks like this one does. Ooh. Inspect your ammo before you use it. It's what fighter pilots did in World War I because making bolts wasn't nearly as reliable as it is these days. But inspect your ammo, throw away messed up ones, and decide whether or not you need to keep others. But make sure you're using good ammo if you want good results, good accuracy, and good power. Okay, primaries. So I'm going to be very upfront here. I prefer flywheels over just about anything else. Their rate of fire is absolute, hands down the best. You can't get a Vulcan to shoot as fast as a 3-cell rapid strike. Their range is lacking, but motors are getting better and better, and flywheel technologies are getting better, and we're catching up to the springers. Now, this is in relation to normal superstock boards. You've pretty much only got flywheels or spring-powered blasters. Spring-powered blasters, you can get more punch out of them, but in my experience, they fail more often for me, and I just can't shoot as fast as I want to with them. But if you're somebody who wants something a little lighter, has instantaneous power, and can shoot a bit further after a good bit of modification, maybe springers are the way to go for you. And honestly, I showed a Retaliator because that's the only springer I've got in my entire house. But for me, it's the flywheel. Now, that's the only downside I can see about flywheels, is the amount of time it takes to rev. It's never been an issue for me because everything that I modify runs on a LiPo and fires up, boom, just like that. It just starts right then and there. But when you're running flywheels, I've found that anticipating when you're going to need to attack and knowing that you need to rev up your blaster beforehand really offsets that. The only other issue with flywheels really is range, but like I said, motors are getting better, flywheels are getting better, and the fire capacity and the ability to put rounds downrange faster than anything else is unbeatable, in my opinion. Now, regardless of which one you choose, use magazines. If I have to drill one thing into anybody's head today, it's to use magazines. Magazines are the most effective way to carry ammunition and the most effective way to fire quickly. Regardless of which you use something that uses magazines. That's my opinion, but if a Cyclone Shock user or a Strong Arm user came up to me and started firing, they've got 6 shots, then they're out. I have up to 18, some cases 25 or 35. Then I'm out, then I drop it, 2 seconds later I'm back out again. You can't do that with turrets. You just can't. Magazines, use magazines. My next tip is for sidearms, and regardless of what you use, you need to make sure it's reliable. Arguably more reliable than your primary. In my mind, your secondary should be powerful enough to continue on as your primary if you had to drop it. And my personal loadout, I use a Nike, which is a pistol that has flywheels in it, that feeds through an Apollo handle, shoots rival rounds, and it's full auto. Sometimes I really do drop my primary to use that as my primary, but most people won't go out and make one of those, so normal pistols work. The Strong Arm and the Rebel 5x5, they're hard to beat. There's a lot of aftermarket following for this. This one has brass barrels, metal trigger and handle, and an upgraded spring in it. It hits hard, it shoots far. I love it to death. I have a holster for both of these. It's a big issue. I see a lot of people with these in their pockets. They're falling out, they're flapping around, they're firing off in their pockets. Make sure you have some way to securely carry these things. And also, my personal preference is be able to use it one-handed. I can use my Strong Arm with one hand. Have my primary in the other, secondary in the other. The Magnus, now this one is beefed up quite a bit, but you'd have to drop or have a sling for your primary to be able to use your secondary, and I find that to be very inefficient, and I don't recommend it personally. So get something like Quickfire 8, the dart tag gun that just uses your finger pull to advance the plunger. Something that can be used single-handed or even dual-wielded, so you can carry 2 of them. It's a big advantage in games because when you're pinned in a corner, you can have 2 sources firing off simultaneously. And I think that's a big plus for your secondary. My next point is tools, and your tools will vary depending on what your setup is, what your rig is to hold your accessories, and what blasters you're using. But for me, it usually includes extra batteries for my flywheels, Gorilla Tape because duct tape just can't stand up to Gorilla Tape. It's the best thing since sliced bread. Super glue for when you need something more than Gorilla Tape, and at least 1 screwdriver because I need to take battery covers off, I might need to open a blaster to fix a jam, etc., etc. Figure out what tools you need to make your setup work and get them and bring them. Usually that helps. And now for my loadout. Boom. This is what I carry into war. As you can obviously see, the most pertaining feature is my skirt. I get a lot of flack for this, but I've got more balls than anyone else, so I don't really care. But you'll notice one of my magazines is missing, and I think this rings true to every loadout, is don't carry more magazines than your carriers can carry. Why would you have all of your magazine slots full, all of them? Why would you do that? Because as you're shooting with a round, a magazine in your blaster, you go to reload. What are you going to do? You're going to throw this away? You're going to drop it? You have a dump pouch? You're going to do one of these? It just doesn't make sense. So I always leave one blank so that when I'm empty, I can drop that one in. There's already a space waiting for it. Pick up another one, and I'm good to go. Now, my favorite part of my loadout is probably that my sidearm is basically my primary on steroids. This is what I call the Nike. It's rough, but it works, and I'm not too worried about cosmetics. It has Zeus flywheels, also runs on 3S LiPo, has a full auto pusher mechanism from a Rapid Strike, and feeds from an Apollo handle. Right now I've got a 7-round magazine loaded into it, and 2 more 7-round magazines on the holster, so I can reload it on the fly if I need to. But honestly, if things get hairy and I really just need to mow people down and run, I'll drop this and run my Nike from my 12-round magazines. And I think that's a really fast and efficient solution to being weighed down and needing to move a lot. Obviously my holster works like a charm. I love it to death. Sits to the side, isn't too bulky, doesn't flap around too much. And while that's a really loud noise, nothing falls out. A couple of other notes. When you're running around, I see a lot of people, running like this. You're going to hurt yourself, first of all, if you fall down. But, and this sounds cheesy, you got to be tactical about it. Hold it away from your shoulder. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you're doing it single-handed. Don't push it against your shoulder. I see people getting bruises just from running with their guns pressed to their shoulders, blasters. Don't hurt yourself. Don't do that to yourself. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can figure out what works for you. And I want to preach this to the end of the world. Figure out what works for you. This works for me. I love Rivals because they're super accurate, they're pretty easy to mod, and the blasters, for flywheels at least, already come really souped up and ready to take even more power. Didn't have to change motors or anything. So this works for me. Figure out what works for you. I'm not telling you what you need to do. I'm telling you what I do and how I think, so you can go out and do something similar. Find out what you prefer, find out what works for you, and then go do it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.